Welcome back to the Tactical Pause podcast. I'm Kevin Price.
I'm Kevin Reed.
And I'm Armando Macias.
And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. That's the best way to help us with the YouTube algorithm. So our guest today is John Duresky, who is a combat veteran with 3 deployments to Southeast Asia, including a tour in Iraq. He's a retired Air Force major, and he has 37 total years of government service, including 4 years at Hanford as a project control officer. John graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and is currently a certified project management professional. Married for 31 years, John and his wife have 2 grown children who are both college graduates. John's first Air Force assignment was Fairchild Air Force Base, and he has adopted Washington as his home ever since. John is now running to represent the people of Washington's 4th Congressional District, and we welcome him to the show. Thanks for being on today, John.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I want to start with the basics. So what made you decide to make this run for Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I tell the story a little too often. It almost sounds canned, but it's really what happened. I was minding my own business, working toward retirement, as one does at the Hanford field office. And we got the fork in the road email. You guys heard about that last year in the news, right? And I'd never seen anything like that in the government. We deferred on that, but then my wife and I had that conversation where we're like, well, if they offer us a second bite at the apple, we'll take the early retirement. I think we could squeeze by. And so, 2 months later, that email came, and that was it. 37 years of government experience, walked right out the door, along with hundreds, if not thousands, of my fellow civil servants doing real significant damage to our federal administrative capacity and capability. I mean, I don't think people are really warmed up to how much damage has been done to our government at the hands of Trump just yet. The next day is where this gets interesting, at least from my perspective, because again, never planned on being a politician. So the next day I'm listening to the Bulwark podcast, and Sarah Longwell from the Bulwark is talking, and she says this is going to be a wave election. Democrats are going to win a lot of seats, and it's going to be driven by the kind of candidates who see how crazy things are, and they have to get off the sidelines. They have to get into the game. And guys, that was it. That's my race basically started that day.
One thing I would say too is I live in rural Missouri, and the big beautiful bill has just taken what was left of us and stripped it for parts. There's been a couple of times where I've talked, we get our comments online, and I've shown like, this is what 20 years of GOP politics has done here.
Yes.
Our hospital's a parking lot. The industries that were there you can still see the beauty in the woodwork of the buildings, but the roofs are caving in. There's nothing here. And so, what are some things that you would do in Congress to bring rural health care, which is a need so badly here, back into not just rural Washington, but these policies really affect people here in rural Missouri as well?
Kevin, this is such a big deal here in central Washington, same as in Missouri. Our district is by far the most rural in Washington. I've got a map of it on one of my videos where it shows 10 different hospitals in our district that are under severe threat of being closed down. Well, the problem here is that some of these places are 60, 80, even 100 miles away. If they close that hospital, people can't live in those communities anymore. This is not a would be nice to have. This is not a maybe we should fix this kind of thing. I've looked into a lot of the details, and there's a lot of real work to be done here. The bottom line is that the Republican politicians, I always like to make that clear who we're talking about here, the politicians in D.C. put these poison pills so that these parts of the big, beautiful bill are going to start kicking in right as they lose power in D.C. when we take back the House. Now, specifically to your specific point, the reimbursement rates, and I don't know if Missouri has this problem, but as a percentage, the federal government pays the smallest amount of reimbursement for Medicaid and Medicare in the country in Washington state. So in Washington state, again, we've got to fix this, but it's the same problem everywhere. They also passed a supplemental bill to help with that, but the work requirements are going to drive people right off of Medicaid and Medicare And then those hospitals, so their already low reimbursement rates are going to further damage the situation. It's a big deal. It's a real problem.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, sir. My name is Armando. Welcome home. Thank you for your service and going back and serving again. So it's really a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I would like to know, sticking with healthcare. So just piggybacking off what Kevin just talked about too, in Colorado, I'm noticing it. UC Health, I just heard him have a conversation about, hey, a lot of these pediatric clinics are about to close down. We haven't even seen it yet. You know, Governor Polis has been giving that warning. I've already been seeing some people starting to get kicked off a SNAP little by little. We ran on our ballot in Colorado something called Colorado Care. And it was going to be the first time where we were going to have universal health care in Colorado. It was going to be a 3% tax increase for workers. And then for the employers, it was going to be like a 7% tax, get rid of all private health care and all that stuff, all insurance and everything. But it failed. Almost 80% said no, even though when he asked people, they really want it. So I'm like, oh, the propaganda and the insurance lobby was so powerful that it was like, how did it fail over 80% when most of Colorado would like it? And there was, I think, a lack of information or people really understanding what was going on. So my question is, what is your message to bringing that message home of what we're going to do about healthcare in America? Your specific thoughts and policies around that, especially with money in politics.
What year was that, Armando, that went down? When did that happen?
Oh, this was just it was just a few years back. I don't remember the exact year, but it was pretty recently.
It's not specifically important. It's just that Affordable Care Act was specifically designed as a market solution to these problems. And again, the Republicans in DC have fought against it tooth and nail. And so they've broken it with absolutely, like, what do you hear from them? Well, we have a concept of a plan, or, you know, we're going to get a plan to you in 2 weeks. I've been saying on the campaign trail all the time, and I'm in a conservative district, but I'm in a conservative district that 55% of the people in this district are on Medicaid or Medicare. So it's past time for the Democratic Party to say what they mean and mean what they say. I don't know very many Democrats at all that don't stand for universal health care. It is time to push universal health care nationwide. It is time to bring with it a message of economic prosperity for everybody. My angle here specifically is that if you're in a small business and your business is growing and you're going to hit a cost cliff if you grow that business beyond 50 employees, because beyond 50 employees, you have to start paying Affordable Care Act subsidies and premiums. And now you've just got this cliff that you're faced with. Bigger businesses limit their employees to less than 30 hours so they don't have to pay subsidies. So these are, first of all, these are things that we can fix. As Democrats, we can say we've got to do something to fix these kinds of problems in the system. And I would think I don't know how many politicians you guys interview, but I would think everybody would be saying these things. Really, from the Democratic perspective, it's past time to have real solutions and do some real fix on behalf of the American people. And the other thing that I like about the prosperity angle here is that so many people might be stuck in a job that they hate, that they're doing because they have to have the health insurance with it. Maybe they want to start their own business. Maybe they have a nonprofit that they want to engage in. And this kind of insurance that you were talking about in Colorado, by the way, Washington is really, really struggling to do the same thing. We want to pass the same kind of thing here. So believe me when I say I am all for some kind of universal health care, and I don't even think it's controversial to say it.
No, and just like you said, just to add to that, when you look at the numbers, I mean, it almost seems like a no-brainer because, like, you know, there's small businesses that I've been a part of. You know, I'm a small business owner myself. When you look at the numbers, I'm thinking, man, I would much rather pay a little bit in those taxes compared to $1,000 a month for some private bill plus copay, deductible, and everything else. Just, it's such a no-brainer. But I love hearing from politicians that believe in that. I'm like, man, where is that message?
Just to help out here, that ballot measure failed in 2016.
Yeah, thank you. It was about 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we would have done the Affordable Care Act, if you kind of think about the trajectory of 2016, if we would have continued to support the Affordable Care Act, maybe we wouldn't be in the same kind of place. And that would have seemed like a rational vote at the time. But I'm hearing from conservatives who say, look, we've got to fix this system, because even a conservative person is bogged down in all of, and that's what I wanted to add, Armando, is just the insurance. I got a TRICARE, an Express Scripts denial from the TRICARE, my military associated insurance for a drug that is obviously proven, obviously working, and should have been approved without question immediately. So, we're all tired of dealing with the bureaucracy of the for-profit insurance companies that are making us all worse off. By the way, last thing I'll say about this, we have the most expensive healthcare in the world for the least good outcome of the industrialized nations. It's kind of, if you look at the numbers, you were talking about the numbers earlier.
Absolutely. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. I'm actually here in Washington myself. I live on JBLM because my wife's currently serving in the Air Force. A subject that's come up, and I've seen it on your website and with some of your content about voting rights. You've spoke about defending voting rights. So I want to know what concerns you most about the current state of voting access in our country and in our state as well.
I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm still kind of almost struggling. Like, first of all, you live in Washington. I personally believe that Washington sets like a gold standard here. We have exceptional access, and it's super easy to use. You can go onto the Washington website right now. You can change your address for your registration in a minute. When I say it's super easy, you don't even require a specified logon. You just have to have your name and your address. You don't have to fiddle with passwords and all that stuff. So it's like, we have a really good system. Here's what I want to add about this. In Washington state, since around 2000, there have been 3 cases of in-person voter fraud. 3 proven cases out of some 35 million votes cast. So the SAVE Act, it's a solution looking for a problem. I don't know how to put this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm an absolute radical about it. Sowing distrust in our election system is an act of treason against our nation. And any politician that stands in front of people and lobs false accusations of voter fraud ought to be ineligible for office. You don't get to have power if you're then seeking to undermine the trust in the very institutions that are going to grant you that power. It's an oxymoron. I'm sorry. We have to fight hard everywhere that we find these SAVE Act and all the other Republican charade and chicanery with the elections. The elections are working. And you might notice that this is a heads I win, tails you lose situation. When they win, see there, that's totally legitimate. You can't claim conspiracy with that, even though they are spending unlimited dark money on these elections. So the thing that I want to do to protect elections, Kevin, specifically, and I've taken a pledge about this specifically, is we've got to get rid of Citizens United. I don't know how. I don't know what the mechanism is. I just know it has to go. And so I like what Montana and Hawaii are doing. So they're doing it on a state level of saying, nope, we're not having those here. It's just absolutely toxic for our country.
You're talking about spending millions and millions of dollars on ads. And at the same time, you have families like we commute, when I live in a rural community, that there are no jobs here. We have to commute to Columbia, Missouri, which is about a half hour, 45 minutes away, depending on traffic. And so, dark pack money isn't going to help make my gas bill less expensive. It's not going to lower the cost of anything going on. I mean, even to get things here is going to cost us more because of the fuel costs. So, we're talking about being consistently squeezed by just absolute bad policy by mediocre clowns who are pretending to be politicians. And so I wonder, what are some things that you see in your district that policy-wise, realistically, you could do to help working families make life just a little bit more affordable?
Well, let's start with the tariffs, because tariffs are an Article 1 power in the Constitution. And what really bothers me is all around the country for the last 80 years, we have set up our businesses. We basically send a message to working people around the country. You've got to start your own business. You've got to do your own thing. Can't work for a factory because we'll downsize you the next day and send your job off to somewhere else to save us $1 per hour of labor. I mean, they have been clear. We're not going to help you. So a lot of people have built their own small businesses. using this cheap export model. I kind of have a list of like stories I've heard on the radio, but my favorite one happened recently in Texas. The Washington Post had this story about barbecue and the little bespoke bar. Have you guys ever been to Texas, by the way, and been to the little barbecue places all around? I mean, I was stationed in San Antonio for 4 years, and Texas is the mecca of that kind of barbecue. And we always said the more run down and sketchy looking the restaurant, the better. Well, those restaurants are closing because they can't afford to buy the brisket because the prices of beef are skyrocketing, the input cost to their industry on account of the tariffs and the specific policies, economic policies of the Trump administration. So the tariffs to me are the easy one. But anywhere you find an emergency power, an emergency tariff power for the president, I think that the Congress needs to repeal that right away and let the executive branch know, hey, these checks and balances are real. This is our thing. Now, there's a bunch of other things. We do want to strengthen the unions everywhere. I've been endorsed here in Washington by the Washington Labor Council and the Washington Education Association. And so if you look at what's happened in the last, since 1980, we've transferred $50 trillion from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. And the specific mechanism is tax code and labor unions. We've weakened labor unions to the point where they are in lots of places just not present in the labor market. And then we've made wealth pay so much greater than labor. And we should just make your wage catch up. I mean, you ask me what we can do to help working families. We haven't raised the minimum wage since 2009. We could start there. I already mentioned universal health care. That would be a tremendous help. So there's a bunch we can do and have to do, by the way.
With the tariffs and everything, what are some issues, or I should say, thoughts and solutions on housing and rent, and some of the things that you've been seeing or what people have been talking to you about?
Yeah, the housing and rent is a little bit harder question. One thing I would like to do, when we bought our first home, we had a government program that helped us, with the interest rate. It was a low interest loan that helped us keep the payments down. Now, I don't know where those programs have gone. I don't know what their status is. I don't think they're working anymore. We could have a program where the interest rates are so low that it just pays for the administration of the program. And that's a system that I would support immediately to get young working people into houses. This is about the common good. This is about what do we need to do? We need to help the next generation build families, build wealth, and get started. So lots of work to do here. I would also like to help the supply side. We are making it hard in our country to build enough houses. And so that's a thing that we've got to get over right now. We've got to build, and not just build, like too often you see construction for McMansions, for lack of a better way to put it. And what we need is houses for working people near where people want people to work. So, and we've seen this break the economy in multiple locations around the country. So there's real work to be done here. And like I always say, it's time to start sending adults to Congress who are willing to do the hard work.
Yeah. And just to add to that a little bit, because one of the things that drives me crazy is when somebody tells me, well, I said, hey, we gotta raise wages, to keep up with inflation and productivity and everything like that. And they say, well, that's gonna raise the rent. So it's like you're started telling people don't go out and make more money because it's their fault the rent's going up. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I love your answer about supply, and building more homes for working people. The house that I grew up in is now in a neighborhood where everything is completely torn apart, but next door are these super McMansions, where people are like, how do they have $3 million homes next to this?
Yeah, it's an imperative. Build it. I mean, if you see the plans, like even in New York, they were talking about how much housing they wanted to build, and it was short by like a huge number. So yeah, it's a problem everywhere in the country. We're not building enough anymore.
Now, I want to get into some district specific things. One of the things that drew me to your election, outside of many other potential candidates in Washington State, is that District 4, currently represented by Dan Newhouse, he's a very conservative person. However, he voted for the impeachment of Trump at one point, and he also has been for investigating the happenings of January 6th. So MAGA has sort of pushed him out. And I think that you're not having to run against an incumbent is great for you. And obviously MAGA doesn't have a strong enough hold because at one point they reelected him even after that. So I'm just curious how you approach voters who may not have supported a Democrat in the past.
Right. So we have a couple of, I mean, there's a couple of basics here. One, I've served my country for 37 years, as you pointed out. I took a pledge at the beginning of this campaign. It's a group called Take Back Congress. It has 5 parts. And the 5 parts are term limits, ban on insider trading, a moratorium on lobbying by departing congressmen, overturning Citizens United, as I already mentioned, and an enforceable code of ethics for the Supreme Court. The reason that pledge is so important is it's a little bit like the contract with America that Newt Gingrich ran in the 90s. It's a message to the people that we see the incentive structure in Congress is broken. 100 other candidates and I have signed that pledge, and we're going to take that pledge to the people of the 4th District and districts all around the country and say, look, yes, we're Democrats, but we want to fix Congress so that they are representing you and your voice and your interests, not the billionaires and not the drama on TV or whatever the new corruption scandal is, but your interest right here in Central Washington. The other thing that I want to drive home here is that we all raised our right hand and took the oath of office. And over, while I was in the military, they made this crystal clear that oath is not, it's not to a political party. It's obviously not to the Republicans or the Democrats. It sure as hell isn't to a man. No, it's to the Constitution, and it's to the people of the United States and to the people, in this case, of Central Washington. And that's the key. I'm looking to represent all of the people of 4th District, not just my constituent, not just the people that voted for me, as politics seems to have turned. Want to add one more piece of context here, and that is turnout problem here. I think people have just gotten used to it not mattering, and I need everybody to get up off the sidelines. I talked about this at the beginning, that I got off the sidelines, and I need everybody else to get off the sidelines. There are enough people in this district to win this. We have a message that will appeal, that I could appeal across the party lines if they'll let me. But instead, on my social media, I just get Democrats are evil kind of nonsense. So, I mean, we've got to realign the party a little, but we also have to get people out of the freaking echo chamber. So it's a task.
I mean, you're not wrong. There's been so much that even on our page, I see, and sometimes it's just the drive-by, eat shit. And you're like, oh boy, aren't you clever? Yeah. I think I responded to that guy by taking a picture of a derelict building and said, I've been eating Republican shit for 20 years, thanks a lot. So, but the other thing too is I noticed like a lot of people like aren't from that area where they're like, especially on our local ABC affiliate, like you'll have someone to be like, just like ABC 17, and they're living like Indiana. They don't even live anywhere close. So, there's always to me that measure of people who aren't, they're just there to cause trouble.
Yeah.
So I think too, like the positive messaging always does seem to work. I think that's a good idea. It's just to kind of say like, yeah, great, bud, cool. Thanks. There's a website,
Yeah.
everything. I always do like to ask, because I taught for a few years, how are the schools doing? Missouri obviously does not fund our schools, so we have a lot of our rural schools here who are down to 4 days a week, some of whom are combining where kids are riding buses for upwards of 85 minutes a day. So, just because it's near and dear to my heart, not to say that I was very good at it, but it's something that is important to me. How are y'all schools doing?
I'm going to say, you can always do better here. And I've actually taken a bunch of briefings from the budget stuff, and we've got some real shortfalls here in the budget. And I think what's happened is the federal government has started pulling a lot of the aid and the grants and the way that things used to work. And Washington is still trying to provide that same level of service, but now Washington has a hole in its budget. And of course, Washington's a donor state, meaning that we pay more in taxes than we get back by $52 billion. So we have good schools here, actually. I'm very impressed by the quality of the schools. I did not have children here. We moved here after my kids had started college, but the schools are good, but it's a big, messy state, and there's real budget shortfalls and real concern, and there's never enough. We always can do more here. And by the way, the rural side here gets kind of kind of has that tougher time than some of our larger communities. My perception is. I'll stand to be corrected if necessary, but we've got a lot of rural schools that need quite a bit more help because their tax base just isn't covering it.
One of the things that I noticed, especially if you're, being a Democrat running in a Republican district, I'm pretty sure you've had amazing conversations with people. But one of the things I noticed is like when it comes to a Republican or a MAGA person, they're never asked, what are you going to do to bring the left on your side, to bring Democrats on your side? Like, what are you going to do to build a coalition? It's kind of like, I'm MAGA and that's it. I'm a Republican, that's it. Everybody else can screw off. But with Democrats, we're always asked, hey, what are you going to do to build a coalition and bring people on the right to your side, right? And it kind of pulls us more, to how could I be more right wing? How could I be more center? But it's like, and then it gets in the muddy waters. So I think my question is, what are some things you've noticed that have resonated just being an American with American issues, regardless of the district? I mean, is that kind of a thing where you're seeing has been a path to success and a way to resonate with people? Is like, look, man, we're Americans and we're struggling. We're fighting the top. We got to get rid of this whole, left versus right kind of stuff. Is that kind of been something you've been resonating with people you've been talking to?
Armando, there's so much there. I almost don't know where to start. No is the short answer here. I feel like everybody is retreating to their partisan silos. If you look at what and again, I'm going to choose my words carefully. I understand the old school way of being conservative, but let me just get to a very clear point here. The Democrats are no longer in a position where we can compromise our values to reach out to voters. That is a mistake that goes back to Clinton, and it was wrong then, and it's wrong now. I'm not going to triangulate for voters. I'm going to put Americans first. I'm going to put all Americans first, not the big businesses, not the corporations. My frustration, if you can kind of hear in my voice, is that we're still dealing with these partisan silos. Look at what the Trump administration has done to the country, and it is shocking the level of failure of every principle of conservatism. By the way, you guys are in the military. I spent a lot of time around conservative people. I understand what it means to be a conservative.
Oh, yeah.
They've never convinced me, but I understand where they're coming from. And on some issues, let's take regulation of government, for example, regulation of industry. On some issues, I can understand the conservative impulse to be careful, to be, to kind of do your best to let the free market provide as much as possible. I understand the instinct. Believe me, it's usually failed, but I understand the why. No more compromising of our values. This is my message to everyone in this district. This is my message to every Democrat. Stop trying to be a centrist Democrat reaching out. Now, you might be a centrist and think we want to move slowly and think about second and third order effects, and that's great. By the way, that's what conservatism looks like, but we can't compromise our values to do so at all, and we're not going to.
No, I'm so happy to hear you say that. Seriously, that is one of the most refreshing messages that I've heard in a while, because we need to hear that. That's all I got to say.
Everything I've heard, you definitely sound like a man of value, and I know we all wish you the best in your campaign. But if somebody wants to get involved with your campaign, maybe donate or what have you, what's the best way to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, you know the drill here, right? The leading fundraiser in this district has $500,000 already, and we're not even to the primary yet. So we're going to need real resources. My message to everybody, so the website is johnduresky4congress.com. That's the number 4, John Duresky, Duresky. The website has all of the information. There's a donate button. I mostly do Act Blue. You can also send a check to a post office box listed on the website. And yes, you absolutely have to ask for money, because you guys know it's going to take resources to win this race. But you can also follow me on all the social media, as everyone should be nowadays. We're on all the stuff: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the microblog. I'm less good at microblogging. Who has time to sit at Twitter and argue with randos on internet all day.
That's right.
So yeah, John Duresky for Congress. That's the number 4. And yeah, I would appreciate, like, follow, and subscribe. It helps us tremendously. You know the drill. And I'll just say one other thing, that while this is the next way that I serve my country, it really has been a privilege and an honor to get to meet people like you guys, have these conversations, and really try and to be in the game, to be off the sideline. It really gives me, in these days, when you open up the newspaper and see what's happening in the world. I'm sorry, when you open up the computer screen or your phone and look at what's happening in the world,
Yeah.
it really does provide me great value in my heart to feel like I'm doing everything that I can do to fix this on my end.
Well, it's been a great episode, fellas. To the audience, if y'all really like the episode and you want to catch the next one, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, and please catch us on the next episode of Tactical Pause Podcast.